is Seth Hodges here again. I'm going to be talking about American Presbyterianism and American Protestantism and how they're still relevant in America today and how they're also the earliest roots of Christianity. Well, some of the early American Protestantism, it leads all the way back to the days of Martin Luther when he came out against the Roman Catholic Church for selling indulgences to people to say, hey, if you buy these items, you automatically go to heaven. Martin Luther was against that. He was totally against it. He eventually wrote the 95 Thesis, which was, against the actions of Albert and Tetzel, with no intention to divide the church. Luther launched this thesis on October 31st, 1517. In the thesis, he presented three main points. The first one was he was calling them out for basically financially abusing everyone pretty much. For example, the Pope realized the poverty of the German people. He would rather that St. Peter's lay in ashes, that it should be built out of skin, flesh, and bones of a sheep. Focused on the doctrinal abuses that the Roman Church was doing. For example, Luther argued that the Pope had no jurisdiction over purgatory, which was where you go if you don't pay for these indulgences. And the third main point that Luther argues is essentially that he attacked their abuse not only on the church as a whole, but also on their whole religion. It made it look horrible. For example, he calls out that he says that the treasury of the merits of the saints was denied by implication, and the assertion that the treasury of the church was the gospel. This was the crucial point. Heretical, he countered by denying the infallibility of popes, and for good measure of councils also, Scripture was declared the only basis authority. He believed that Scripture was the final authority, the final say of God. And so that is as far back as Lutheranism goes. And eventually would lead into American Protestantism, and that would also about Protestantism, but it's a little different. It's mainly on the theology of John Calvin, and John Knox, also a Scottish monk, also helped pretty much. Let me just go over the basics of Presbyterianism. It's essentially part of the Reformed tradition within Protestantism, which traces its origins to Britain, particularly Scotland, as I said. Presbyterian churches derive their name from the Presbyterian form of church government, which is governed by an assembly of elders. Presbyterian history is a huge part of the history of Christianity, but the beginning of Presbyterianism as a distinct movement occurred during the 16th century Reformation. As the Catholic Church resisted the Reformers, Presbyterianism was especially influenced by the French theologian John Calvin, who was credited with the development of Reformed theology. In the work of John Knox especially, the Presbyterian Church traces its ancestry back primarily to England, Scotland. In August 1560, the Parliament of Scotland adopted the Scots Confession as the creed of the Scottish kingdom. In December 1560, the first book of discipline was published. This outlined the important doctrinal issues, but also established regulations for church government, including the creation of 10 ecclesiastical districts with appointed superintendents, which later became known as presbyteries. In time, the Scots Confession would be supplemented by the Westminster Confession of Faith and the larger and shorter catechisms, which was formulated by the Westminster Assembly between 1643 and 1649. So, two big religions that go all the way back to the early days of the 16th, 17th, especially 18th and 19th centuries. So there's a lot of great work on. There's a lot of great books out there on Presbyterianism, Protestantism. I would gladly share it with any of you if any of you are interested. This is the end of my video. Thank you for watching.